Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm Steve Dosier. I'm the partner director for More for Apps. My role is to manage the Oracle partners within our channel stream that actually use our tool to help clients migrate to Oracle Cloud ERP. I also work with implementation teams with the client to when they transition the use of our tool over to the client so that clients can continue using our tool as business as usual. I'm joined by my colleague, David Wright. He's the global solutions director, so he'll be co-presenting with me. Welcome, David. Glad to have you with me on this call.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for inviting me along to this one.
Yep. And
Um,
here,
yeah, it's great to be here.
thank you. And here we are navigating the hypercare storm rapid post go live data resolution. So our goal here is to help you get through hypercare as an implementation team composed of both partners and the IT team and the functional users of the client, and get you back to business as usual as quickly as possible after your migration. And here it is. Here's what you see when we see the shortest party in the world, and it's the go live party. And typically, as we all know the feeling, we have a go live party that lasts about 5 minutes before the reality of hypercare sets in. And David and I are not going to talk about software configuration and technical issues. We're going to talk about the traffic jams that occur with data and threaten your first month end close. More importantly, how those traffic jams can burn through your high cost project hours and harm your reputation and erode project margins, right? So you're welcome to celebrate, get into hypercare, and hunker down and get ready to resolve and get issues going to business as usual. David, anything to add to this slide?
No, it's just from memory as a consultant, it's that time of peace before the storm. It reminds me of either a hurricane or a cyclone, depending where you are in the world. And you know it's coming, but it's not quite there yet, and you're not sure where it's going to hit.
Good. And here we are. Here's the anatomy of the hypercare storm. Whether you're coming from Oracle EBS or some other non-cloud or we'll call it modernized ERP system, you might be dealing with more relaxed rules in the past, right? You have maybe optional fields. You might have flexible logic, et cetera, et cetera. But as you're going into the Oracle Fusion Cloud, you've got much more strict rules. You've got much more strict data-driven rules that will constrain what you're allowed to do in the new environment. And David, in your experience across major ERP go-lives, why does this phase consistently become the pressure cooker? The system passes the technical unit testing, but the moment real-world data hits the production environment, everything seems to hit the fan and stall.
Yeah, so this problem isn't a unique Oracle one, even though we're in the Oracle space. I've dealt with SAP as well. Technically, things work. You'll find that the migration of the data works. Everything seems to work. The problem tends to be assumptions, and people assume that the data is correct when it's come across. And what might be a rule in one system that works because you've got some sort of little customization that someone forgot about, or it's just completely different, doesn't always work in the system you're putting it into. So there's so many moving parts that you get incorrect alignment. You get fields where you expect to be a value, or there's an outdated value, something like that. It can be anything from a cross-validation rule, which seems to be a real big one with the accounting, through to categories, units and measure, receipting rules, things like that. Even down to something as small as, price lists having end-dated items that shouldn't even be there, and they're not in the item master the way that you expected them to be, and then suddenly you can't purchase them, you can't order them any longer. So it's those sorts of things. So it's assumptions that other people have done something and you expected something to be done, and it wasn't always done the way you thought it would be.
So if I was going to summarize this slide, what I would say is on the legacy architecture, it's more permissive. It's a little more forgiving. Whereas on the cloud architecture, it's going to be more rigid. And to one extent, I've had clients tell us that where we slid by for years on some lax data rules, our data was violently rejected by cloud engines when we tried to go to the cloud. Violently rejected. That always cracks me up. So, all right. So here's the implementations team dilemma, right? You've got two resourcing models. Do you want to be a firefighter or do you want to be a strategic delivery partner, right? So you've got thousands of transactions getting stuck in the interface. You've got users with a UI full of error messages. The users are going to look to us as the implementation team made up of client data, IT specialists, functional specialists, and of course, consultants, right? They're going to look to us to fix them. And if our solution is going to be to deploy our most expensive functional or technical teams to manually fix things like typos or incorrect data rules or troubleshoot scripts, the delivery costs are going to skyrocket on this project. Your project team's going to face burnout, and it's just not a good recipe to fight these fires. Better yet, you're better off set up to be a strategic delivery partner on that. And David, let's talk about. I'll give you a minute or two to comment on the slide, but then let's go into what the FBDI error data loop looks like.
Yeah, so just from my personal experience, all-nighters suck as a consultant. You really don't want to be doing them, and you do make more mistakes, and you are dealing with a moving bus with the data and everything, and you do want to get everything done correctly, and to, for your client to be successful. It doesn't look good on you when your job that you've done doesn't prove to be the perfect solution you thought it would be, because something's come and hit you sideways. So the problem with that is that's the firefighter trap. And that's where you keep having to loop through, and act really reactively. Whereas with the strategic delivery, you actually be preempting things happening, and not just that, just have the tools ready to go in order to firefight correctly. So instead of using a garden hose, you've got a fire engine, and you want to be in that situation.
And David, if I was going to summarize this slide, it's supporting what you're saying and shifting the paradigm, obviously away from firefighting into strategic delivery. What that means, we've had clients tell us that many times they've had to wipe and reload the data that they just spent hours and days migrating, right? They've had to wipe out files and reload files, whereas they could take a more strategic approach and say, well, what are the data elements that need to be updated that didn't necessarily work for us? They can actually take an approach where they can download those data elements, make the changes in a third-party tool like Morphraps, and then re-upload them and not have to wipe out hours and hours of work that they've gone through. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes you can't even delete the stuff. You just have to indate it, and that's hurts a little bit to leave some old data there in the system, but that's not valid. But sometimes you just have to do it, and you have to reload again. And if you're going to reload, you need to make sure that data is correct, and more importantly, you need to be able to make sure you can get to the data in order to load it first. So that means that the data that you're loading, you need an easy way in order to make sure that's correct and to have valid data before you even start that loading process.
David, tell us a little bit about the FBDI loop, and since it's the most popular the most popular tool right now in these migrations, tell us a little bit about what can happen.
Yeah, so one of the things that we know about FBDI, and this is from my personal experience as well, is that because you're dealing with multiple worksheets in general, there's one or two that aren't, but in general, it's multiple worksheets. You've got two real issues when it comes to data creation. One, there's no way to download data into FBDI. I know you can sometimes get an output from failed loads and use that as your starting point, but when it comes to actually wanting to build something out, you need to have some sort of report, someone technical building SQL queries, or some sort of Excel output that you may get out of an Oracle UI. Then once you get that, you have to then link the different data sections together. So if you looked at something like suppliers, there's up to 10 different sections. I think customers, I think you're up to 12 or 15. But even just a standard purchase order, you're sitting there looking at 4 different sections of data, and you've got to link them together. And if there's multiple headers, multiple lines, multiple shipments using the PO ones and distributions, that's a huge amount of data. If you were just doing 4 different purchase orders, you've got 4 different sections that can have multiple lines with multiple header links and all sorts, and it's very easy to make a mistake. So then, of course, you go through and you run through the Oracle's 2 processes to get the data in, and then that's when you start having to do this sort of doom loop of going back and fixing and fixing and fixing. And when it comes to making sure you get the list of values right, quite often you're in the Oracle screen and copying and pasting exact values out of the fields to get it right, because it has very limited and basic data validation within the worksheet.
David, if I was if I was going to summarize the slide as well, it's fair to say to give FBDI credit where credit's due, right? It's good use for large one-time migration when we're piping over all those millions of records, right? But the minute we get to hypercare, it makes it a bit impractical and expensive to try to be agile and provide real-time data modification or correction once we've done the migration and brought over all that data. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, every tool's got its place, and FBDI is really, that is the one when you're trying to push across millions of records, etc. Usually you're doing that with time on your side before you've gone live. So the issue with go live is you've got a moving bus once you're live, and it's not really the sort of tool that's responsive and quick enough for what you need to do. And that's where FBDI isn't really the product to use after you've gone live for your data.
Let's compare a couple of different approaches, right? The way that we can do this. I alluded to the paradigm shift, getting away from firefighting and wiping and reloading data, right? And using something that's a little more friendly. Here's where more for apps will flip the script, right? Instead of forcing a technical wipe and reload of data, right? We bridge those cloud APIs directly within a secure Microsoft Excel interface. We validate the data before it leaves the sheet. We highlight data errors in the precise cells where the data is problematic, right, or violate Oracle's rules. And most importantly, we allow the client's own data stewards and managers to make those corrections. I don't need an IT person. We love IT, but they're busy enough as it is. And we love our consultants, but they're expensive for these types of fixes, especially when we as clients can fix that data ourselves and prepare data prior to migration if we want to, right? So it allows us as data stewards to have control over our own data, right? If I was to look at the Oracle native tools, you can read through the chart with me there, but the bottom line is the Oracle tools can be rigid and not flexible. The data validation is done after the fact. You have to hunt it down in a PDF and find out where your data went wrong. You have to go back into the Oracle interface and correct that data if it needs correction. Many times you're going to do destructive wipe and reload of the entire database and reload data that you've had to correct externally or in another forum. And many times that process is owned by IT and consultants. Whereas using a tool like More for Apps, you've got that flexibility of Excel. People know how to use Excel. You have that pre-validation prior to the upload. You have you can edit directly in the sheet and edit the problematic only data errors that you have. You don't have to wipe and reload everything. And it puts the users in charge, puts the users in charge of their data. David, anything else to add to this?
Yeah, I think that last one about put the user in charge of their data is huge. I mean, one of my experiences that I've gone back to many times is I spent plenty of years working in the healthcare industry, working in hospitals, and I'm not a medical expert. And having me look at different items with the different namings, categories, sure, I got a bit better at them, but I wasn't the one that could just zero in on something and know that it was wrong. So being able to give those end users the ability to use more for apps and actually just fix the data themselves. That gave me way more confidence than me doing it as a consultant because I'm external. I know a bit about what we're doing. We've been in the project for a while, but I haven't lived and breathed in that industry for years like the end user has. And I think that's really key is the end users really are the ones that know their data.
So if I were to summarize this slide, David, I'd say that by moving from the destructive reload methodology to a live Excel-based edit environment, implementation teams can eliminate their firefighting duties and hand data ownership over to the users who actually know their data best.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're de-risking as well. I mean, you're getting the right person to do the job. And I used the word assumption earlier. Us consultants can make assumptions, whereas the end users actually know their data, and more importantly, they're the ones that are going to have to own it in the future. So if you give them the tools to do it, where they don't want to throw the computer across the room because the FBDI is too hard to use, then More for Apps is a really good example of a tool that can help end users own that data and work with that data.
So David, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask you to go ahead and share your screen. And let's go ahead and stop this jabber jawing and let's show them the power of what we're talking about, right? And so what we'll do with this is I'll introduce the demonstration and the scenario of the demonstration. And David's going to talk us through a practical application of actually using a tool and a different alternative, better alternative to what comes with Oracle. So.
Yeah, so I'll just move past this slide, and I think my audio just didn't work for the video that I'm going to show, but everything I'm going to show here is based on real data and real situations that's happened with customers and consultants we know of. This one here is a classic example where one of our customers ended up with a whole lot of purchase orders that were migrated to the wrong cost center. And we ended up building a video out of this. And really the problem was they had 600 POs in this case. I actually think it was 1,600 POs. And they had incorrect approval routings as well. Could be an issue. In this case, it wasn't for them. They were okay, but we had other ones where the accrual setting was wrong. The upstream processes around the vendor relationship and the disruption and month end is huge. It starts with the POs not being able to be approved because there's no approval path for the account combination, and that was the first one that was hitting them.
David, could we just, I wanted to just to stress that the time savings, these are real examples that we've used, and we've gotten feedback from our clients and our partners, and the time savings in this case have reduced 3 to 4 days of the manual consultant work to about 2 hours, right? About a 98% reduction in labor effort here.
Absolutely. And this is what really pushed them to use our product. They were already looking at more for apps, but when they hit this thing, they really then decided to use more for apps. And it really meant that the consultants didn't have to do it. The internal team did this, not the external consultants. So they just downloaded the POs directly into Excel. They updated the distributions, and with one click, they got all that data back into Oracle. Obviously, when you're doing these sorts of mass changes, you want to do it in your copy of production first, make sure it's right, and just do it. And with more for apps, you can just connect to either instance and just run with it. So with that, I've got a video here. I'm not sure the audio will come through with this.
Video. Today we're going to change
but basically, we're going to take these purchase orders here, the charge accounts incorrect.
The bottom one is the updated one. You see, we have to
and we just do a change request on the PO.
Hey, David, I'm not sure that we're seeing. I'm not sure that we're seeing the actual demo screen.
Okay, I'll just redo my share. I'm not sure what's happened there.
How it's done.
Share settings.
This is all I'm pasting in a PO. I could
Sorry about that. I'll share. That's where we.
And I'm using the More for Apps defaulting feature in row 10 to help speed up the data.
Right, I'll do that again.
Hi,
good job.
This video. Today we're going to change the distribution on an existing PO. What I'm showing here in the top PO is the existing. The bottom one is the updated one. You see we have to put a change description in. And we do that at the header as well as the distribution level and an action of update. And you can also see the distribution account changes we've made from the original PO to the changed PO below. Let's see how it's done. First of all, I'm pasting in a PO. I could put in multiple purchase orders here. And I'm using the More for Apps defaulting feature in row 10 to help speed up the data entry. I then just go and change the charge accounts. In this example, I'm just using the last charge account and making that the charge account for all the other line items. And I simply press upload. You can see the defaults kick in there with update dist account. We call the Oracle Web Service. And if we go back to the left, we'll see that our changes have been accepted. Now, to ensure that the changes have taken place, you can download the purchase order. When we scroll to the right, we'll see.
And so, yeah, so actually looks like it's cut short. If we scroll to the right, it would actually show, and I'm not sure why it didn't, where the changes have taken place. So you can do more than just upload the data. You can download it again and check that the changes have taken place. So the second one that we wanted to look at, and this is an area that I'm not so familiar with, this came from one of our consulting partners, and that was migrated costs. And so the situation was that in the projects module, they had a bunch of tasks that they needed to get across. They weren't quite sure how to align the tasks to the actual projects. So they put some information in the descriptive flex field in order to bring through that information. Then once the projects were created in Oracle and they were live projects, they could then go and migrate these costs to the correct project. So the issue was the project tasks and the costs for those projects were not aligned. And this is something they couldn't do until they went live. So this is slightly different to the other scenarios. So they knew they had this issue to fix once they were live. And how they did this was just migrating those costs into the spreadsheet. They used standard Excel functionality to map to the new tasks. In their case, it was just the DFF through to the actual task. And it would have taken weeks of effort through the Oracle forms. Using more for apps, the spreadsheet took less than 1 hour. They didn't have to build anything. I know there's options where you can actually build programs, etc. In order to do that, it was just done and it was ready. And so this is what it looked like as an example using our software, of course, how you can migrate these tasks. Now, in the case
There's
of
various methods to performing adjustments in Oracle. You can do them one by one in the user form, or you could use the mass update feature. Additionally, you could create a VBCS template based on the REST service. There is no support for ADFDI or FBDI in this process. However, it's far easier to use the More for Apps integrator for your cost adjustments. Now for the scenario. We have imported a large number of transactions into the instance during a migration, but the tasks on the project were not set up. The transactions were all loaded onto dummy tasks. And now post go live, I need to transfer these cost transactions onto the correct tasks. The correct destination task is in the descriptive flex field. We're going to use this information to update the task. I have my criteria here in the worksheet for the project and the expenditure batch, and I'm going to download via sheet and pull back all this information around the project. I'm going to put a create action in the defaults row, and in the adjustment type I'm going to set this to transfer as well, so I don't have to enter this each time. In this case we're keeping the same project number, so we're using a formula to reference the project number to the right, and the new task we're referencing on that DFF column. Once we're happy with our data, we choose upload all to upload all these task updates. You'll notice the default values flow through, and then we call Oracle's service to import, and those tasks have been updated. Process complete, all our adjustments are accepted.
So that's how you can do one with the projects area. That's been used a bit by consultants. They're also doing things around project templates and fixing those post go live as well. The third one I've got is another one that I hit, and that was we had an issue where the buyers were incorrect for items and the item categorization was incorrect as well. And this flowed through to requisitioning. It meant that the charge accounts were incorrect and requisitions couldn't be created because the person did not have the rights to approve or submit their requisitions to that charge account. And then when it went forward to someone else, they didn't, and it went flying up the chain to people higher up in the company that didn't really want to be approving purchase order requisitions. Requisitions, not purchase orders. And this was, this is one that we had to fix really quickly. Again, we found some of this actually go live. We found it in the conference room pilot. I think we're about 3 weeks out from go live, and we managed to fix most of these beforehand. But it was a nice way to actually get the data correct just before we go live without disturbing a whole bunch of different people. It was really nice that we didn't suddenly need a side project, or worse than that, delay the go live because we found this issue. It was something that was very quick and easy for us to fix. And as you'll see in this video here, it's not a hard thing to do with More for Apps, and it was certainly a lot easier than other options out there. Let's fix some items that have an incorrect buyer and an incorrect category.
For this, we're going to use the download form. We first enter in the organization, then the items that we're interested in looking at, and the catalog. Now I could do just the catalog by itself, but I want to reduce the data coming back for this example. And we can see here we want to change the buyer, and we use the default of Sue Carey. And we want to put a new category, and if I'm not sure about that category value, I can use the user form to find the value for me. We now press upload, and this will validate the data in the worksheet, and then once this is done, it will call the Oracle Web Service. And when the Oracle Web Service is finished, go to the left and we can see that records have all been accepted.
And it's that easy. So in order to change something like items, the buyer, even post go live, well after go live, just changing the default buyer, you can quickly and easily do it in a spreadsheet. And that's it for the demonstrations I've got of real life examples where people have used Morph Reps around that go live, the Hypercare, and this last one just before Hypercare, to show how it can be really used and have end users be empowered to do it. You to save having to use expensive consulting resources, or worse, pulling them off your new projects to go and help out the old client where things should have already been done and should have just been working. Steve, over to you.
Yeah, David, thank you very much. Hopefully what we take away from the demonstration there is how simple it is to use the tool and just have the, make the changes in the data, whether you're changing 5 records, 500, 5,000, et cetera. It's that easy. It's that easy. This is this section. We have some Q&A at this point. And I think that, sorry about that. I think there was one question, and I'm trying to, Stephanie, could you moderate?
Yeah, I'll help you.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
one
I'll help read
question.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a couple. I'll help read them for you. Okay, so this went back to the one example. Does this create a purchase order change order by changing the accounting? Pretty sure this was during
Yes, it does.
the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's different options depending on the privileges you give people. So if you're in a situation where you want to change that and you're in that hypercare stage and there's a whole bunch like the scenario I had, you can bypass approvals if they're given the privilege to do that in cloud. And with EBS, you also have a similar option with more Reps around profile options where you can do it if you're an EBS customer. And then that way, these changes aren't going out to the approvers. And so it's a quick and easy way to do that. And in the change description, obviously for audit reasons, you'd say why you've done it and why it's not gone through approval.
Okay, cool. If the data is heavily fragmented or messy during mock conversions, shouldn't users just fix it in their legacy system rather than using an Excel tool post go live?
I'll answer that one again. That's ideal world. We'd love that as a consultant. And that should be part of the whole project. Look, if you're looking at moving to cloud, for example, and you're on EBS, you should be looking at using Morph Reps for your EBS to clean the data up beforehand. A classic example is your items, your bombs, your suppliers, your customers, all that sort of stuff you should be looking at cleaning up before the Oracle team even turn up. And as it's an end user tool, your end users can do that. And you can start doing that cleanup well in advance of the project kickoff. For other systems, if you're coming from SAP or Dynamics or something like that, there are tools available in order to help you do that sort of thing. But yes, ideally, you should be doing that cleanup in the old system as much as possible. It just makes the whole process so much smoother.
Very cool. What is the learning curve for the business team, and do we need to factor in extensive training costs during an already tight implementation timeline?
David, I can take that one, right? So the learning curve is if you know Excel and you're familiar, you have basic familiarity with your ERP system, you can be up and running within an hour. It's literally that simple. It's about a half hour or 40 minutes to install the software, provide privileges, you're using Oracle's own privileges, Oracle's own security, et cetera, giving access to your users. Training, once again, if you're familiar with the functionality of Excel, within about 30 to 45 minutes, you can get the basics down and start navigating through spreadsheets and uploading and downloading and editing data. It's that simple. As far as mastering the tool itself, it's really more about your knowledge of your own ERP system and data, than it is about any of the technology that's using. It's very basic Excel commands and functionality. That said, you're taking full advantage of Excel's power as well.
Okay, great. Let's see. What is the best cooperative approach for an Oracle partner to introduce more fraps to a client? Should we use it purely as a back pocket tool or recommend client ownership?
So David, I'm gonna take that one and ask you to jump in as well. We've had clients tell us from the start that they wish that the Oracle partner would have introduced our tool at conference room pilot. And the reason why is because by the time they figure out that the Oracle native tools aren't going to work for them, there's this mad dash and scramble to recover. We've got dozens and dozens of examples of clients that have done that, where they tried to limp along using FBDI or ADFDI or custom built tools that require extensive maintenance and upkeep, where they wish they would have just been introduced to our tool in advance. Now, that said, our tool is perfect to introduce at the beginning of the project. It's perfect for consultants to use during the project and on the project. It's perfect to collaborate with clients and give them ownership of their own data, and let them do their data cleansing and before and after cutover as well. But it's a collaborative effort. Some of the best projects that have been completed under budget and ahead of time have been ones where the customer and the client collaborated using more fraps in the whole data effort. So, David, anything else to add?
Yeah, even down to creating test data, things like that. It's a great set of tools in order to do that sort of thing as well. So the earlier you bring the end client in, the better, because they're going to have to run with this stuff, and if you give them simple tools, they can take more of the workload off you, rather than struggling with data. The worst one that I see is sometimes you'll have consultants that have used something in the past, and then they're just trying to bash their head against the wall again and again and again, getting it working for people. And FBDI is a classic with that one. And then once, of course, they move to more fraps, then they don't, they don't go back. When people move to that situation, the end users keep more fraps, the consultants are happy, the end users are happy. It's a win-win for everyone.
Okay, great. You have a few more. How do you handle the security and governance aspect?
I'll take that one, Steve. So the log, and you log in natively with more fraps to the Oracle Cloud or EBS. And as Steve alluded to earlier, you have privileges, etc., that are all set up in Oracle. The way Oracle's interfacing works as well is that if you don't have that privilege, you can't get the data in. So Oracle controls all of that for us. We do have some additional security as well that you can optionally choose to put in, allowing people to download certain sources, etc., as well as part of the product. But in general, it's all being run through Oracle, which means you don't need a separate set of security and things like that. When you do install for cloud, we do have some roles that you can actually have pre-built that we've decided that we say, hey, this is what you should have. It's optional to install them, but most people do install them, and that's just to make sure you can call the web services and things like that. So it's all within Oracle.
Okay, great. We often see in-flight transactions, for example, partially paid invoices or open POs, fail during the cutover weekend interface handshake. Can this tool be used dynamically during that 48-hour window?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be POs, it can be invoices, etc. It's ideal for that sort of thing, and especially if you've got them already in the spreadsheet and ready to go, and all you need to do is make sure that those quantities are changed, for example, or you've got a report that runs from your legacy system that you can run, and if it's in a in a format that our spreadsheets can take up, we'll just load it straight away. And that's quite a common way of doing it. It's, right, we've finished on the Friday, we've shut everything down, let's run those reports, put them in the spreadsheet, and press upload.
Okay, great. We have two more. So as an implementation team, how does introducing more fraps early in the design or blueprint phase change our overall hypercare exit criteria?
Steve, I'll leave that one to you.
Yeah. So basically, it accelerates your exit criteria. In other words, you're able to, as an implementation team, as a consultant, you're able to exit much more quickly because you've got the client back to business as usual because they're in charge of their own data. They've got a tool that they can use. They don't need IT support. They don't need consultant support. They don't need any special technical know-how. And it allows you to exit the whole hypercare stage much more quickly. That's been our experience at this point.
Okay, great. And our last one. So during hypercare, how can we leverage the data validation features to establish day 15 health checks rather than waiting for day 30 failures?
So, David, I'm going to let you take that one.
Yeah, so partway through with the once you've gone live, you can actually start downloading things and seeing how they're going. So, for example, you can be downloading blanket purchase agreements, making sure that the lines are all there. You could be comparing the items on the bill of material, making sure that they're active, or the structures, should I say, and just things like that. You can actually be doing some preemptive checking of things around the finance. It's not so much my strong side on that, but you could actually be looking at where things fail in interfaces. So you could be looking at where GL has code combinations that have failed, and then based on that, you can start looking at what you need to fix for that, and if that affects anything else with those changes that are happening there. But it's a real hard thing. It really is to be totally proactive in that area.
Okay, great. So before I let Steve and David make their final remarks, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. And I would like to also thank you guys for taking the lead for this session. And everyone will receive the recording by the end of the week. But anything you guys would like to say just to sign off?
Yeah, just a couple. In closing, just a couple of slides. This slide really wraps up your playbook in terms of where we can partner with you and Oracle partners and clients in the whole pre-go live data cleansing realm. We can help get the data right by using our tools in the EBS world, and even while you're in flight and cutting over, right, you're using our tools in the cloud to modify transactions that may need post, in-flight modifications, et cetera. And obviously, in the hypercare handover, the whole point, if the theme has been to get the clients and the users back to business as usual as quickly as possible. And this slide actually answers a couple of the questions that were asked. This is your playbook here. David, anything to add to this one?
No, I think we've covered it really well. I just know from projects that I went on before More for Apps and ones that I were on once More for Apps was in, there was a huge difference in the way we did things.
Yeah. And then just to give you some contact information, there's a lot of information here, and to pack it all into half an hour, 35 minutes, it's a good try, but we're not going to, right? Obviously, if you'd like to unpack this and dig a little bit deeper, you can start by calling me, and I'll arrange and direct traffic, get you in touch with the right people in terms of your account managers or others that help you. And we can take you from firefighting to business data stewardship in the hypercare phase and get you back to business as usual as quickly as possible. So thank you very much for your attention, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.